And I think if I was to sum up this video in one sentence, I would say too many people today. Ironic, I'm talking about GMTs and I have airplanes flying over. There's an airstrip just down the road from where I stay. Too many people pursue the GMT complication for its status instead of its purpose. The GMT complication, well, it has taken the watch world by storm. It's hard to look at any brand today, no matter the price point, no matter where you're approaching it from. You will see at least one watch from whatever brand that determines a separate time zone. And it's really fascinating, or at least I find it fascinating, that in the last, let's say, 10 years, the GMT complication watch, it has really taken off. And I'm going to give you that last introductory pun for free. The fascination surrounding the GMT complication, I don't think it has ever been stronger. And if we think back to, let's say, 30 years, the 1990s, let's say the 1980s, this complication has always been there. And it's questioning how brands have cottoned on to the idea that more people want them. Is it through advertising, promotion? Are brands themselves understanding that they can do so much with the designs of these watches, and that's what we're going to get into? Or is it the simple fact that the consumer is far more interested in the watch than ever before? But the question I wanted to ask, and the real basis for the video, is do you really need a GMT watch? I mean, the closest thing I have to a watch that has a second time zone feature is a Pilot chronograph with a rotating bezel. And even then, I think it's a cool novelty. See, I think for a lot of people today, the modern day watch enthusiast, it's about checking boxes. It's about filling the watch box with pieces that cover a certain criteria. Dive watch, GMT, chronograph, Pilot watch, field watch, you get the picture. And I'm just wondering whether or not the enthusiast, or should I say the majority of people who chase the GMT, are they going after it for its feature and its function, or are they going after it because it has a special novelty aspect behind it? It's best to start by laying the foundations and understanding where the GMT complication stemmed from. I mean, originally it was designed to be a professional's watch. It was designed for someone in that specific field, traveling abroad, working abroad. Whether they were international businessmen or women, pilots of varying degrees, maybe if you were in the military at the time. See, the modern watch world is quite different, and I think the way the GMT is interpreted is also quite different. You know, the airline pilots, I don't think anything has changed. There's always going to be an interest in this watch for its history, its background, the generations of testimonials surrounding it. But the typical wearer of the GMT watch today is either an international traveler or someone who is stationed in one part of the world and wants to know their home time. Living in this interconnected world where so much of work that we perform today is international based, where a lot of the time we might need to know what time it is in head office, or whether or not the deadline you're working on needs to be completed in the next few hours. The GMT watch has gained such a good reputation because we've all been told it's a great watch. Where once it was seen as just another watch in a collection of sports pieces, it's now considered a flagship by a certain brand, and I'm not going to name names. So we have established that there is great practicality behind these pieces, and if you needed to know more than one time zone, it's there for you. It's also just a nifty complication to have. You know, the more features, the better. Something else to add to a collection that makes it all the more dynamic, interesting, and the watch wearing experience a little bit different. But then again, I have this theory that the majority of people chase the GMT for its design and for its color. And this is where I think watch brands across all different names and platforms have definitely come to the party, because they understand the creative options that they have at their disposal to make these watches infinitely more fascinating, engaging, dynamic. There are only a handful of complications out there that manage to get it so right. But this intersection of design and function, I think, can be no better expressed than through a GMT watch. The reason why so many people are drawn to these watches is not because of the functionality, practicality, that's all superfluous, really. It's because they're beautiful. And the power of using such expressive colors like blue, green, red, yellow, orange, any color under the sun practically. Through this, there are near infinite possibilities on how you could address the GMT. But what I like is where some brands might be so successful on the creative front with colorways and different distinctions, other brands might be more successful on the pricing front. So maybe you want a more affordable GMT, or maybe you want one that's a bit more exotic and stylish. And through all of this cross-promotion, advertising, marketing that we're seeing, the categories to choose from now, compared to, let's say, 10 years ago, it's immense. So beyond the practicality and the functionality, beyond the creative decisions and the designs, they are just really great watches to talk about. Because I think every brand has this sort of underlying urge to address the GMT watch the way they want it to be seen. In there alone, once they have the template, once they have the blank canvas, those responsible for its design can then go wild. What also makes the GMT watch so engaging compared to many of its competitors is that it's able to work across platforms. It can be seen as both a formal and an informal piece depending on the clothing you're wearing. The designs of the watches themselves, some cater to a more dress, formal setting, while others cater to being more sports-oriented. So what makes the GMT such an enigmatic, interesting piece of work, design as a watch in general, is it is this example of a melting pot of all the many things that we enjoy as enthusiasts, and I think people at large appreciate too. The idea that you have a practical watch that does more than one thing, that has multiple features in fact, where brands are able to look at these watches in different settings and question who they're addressing, all of which are driven to create a watch that not only expresses their brand and their design language, but at the same time are creating these beautiful pieces of design, not only through the use of a fixed bezel or a rotating bezel or a fourth hand, but through the use of colors that could conflict or harmonize with one another, through materials, sapphire, ceramic, gold, titanium, platinum, to these amazing textures on the watch dials that simply blow us away. It's not really difficult to see why the GMT watch is appreciated today and why it offers so much, why so many people go after them. I ask myself realistically, how many people use a GMT watch on a daily basis? Is it as practical as, let's say, a dive timing bezel for day-to-day use? I always enjoy looking at the Complication and seeing it as one of the most dynamic creative outlets that a watch brand has at their disposal. Because I think in so many situations they create watches that are functional works of art, that coincide with that old world charm, that prestige of intercontinental travel back in the day, while at the same time they meet today's modern criteria and standards. Not only from a build point of view, but as a practical watch, it's very good. I feel that too many people don't see the GMT for what it is, as this great meeting point of so many wonderful things that a watch brand has been able to do. Like everything in this world, there are two camps. There are those of us who appreciate the watch and everything it encompasses, as a canvas for a brand to express their creative ideas and to execute a really beautiful piece of design that's not only functional. While on the other hand, we see people who chase the GMT because it's the it watch, because there's so much hype surrounding it, because it's the one that's recommended to them. And I think worst of all, because it has this aura surrounding it of being the premium product. Nothing comes close. And I think if I was to sum up this video in a single sentence, I would say, it's a hell of an alliteration, too many people chase the GMT Complication for its status and not its purpose. They go after the watch for its perceived value, but they don't necessarily ask themselves the question of whether or not it's going to fit into their lifestyle. So those are just a few ramblings I've had about this watch that I think deserves to be celebrated on many different levels. Different latitudes and longitudes. Here I was thinking I wasn't going to use puns anymore, but can't help myself today. Does the GMT watch actually have practicality that has added to its overall momentum? Or are people pursuing them solely because of the design, the features, and that it's one of the most sought-after complications in the world for whatever reason? And thank you for taking the time to watch this video. See you in the next one.